Vampires murdering women in the heart of Las Vegas? You'd think this sounds like a job for Buffy or maybe Mulder and Scully. But in 1972, Buffy's still a good 9 years from even being born, and Mulder, well, he's likely searching for Bigfoot at summer camp. Instead, we get Carl Colchack, a disheveled reporter with a cheap suit, a big mouth, and a tape recorder that's seen better days. He's not hunting headlines, he's chasing the undead. Yeah, before things like the X-Files, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Supernatural, and the rest, we had The Night Stalker, a made-for-TV movie that followed rogue reporter Carl Colchack as he's on the trail of a killer who seems a little too nocturnal, a little too strong, and a lot too bitey. The movie would go on to be one of the most successful made-for-TV movies ever released, and would inspire the monster hunting genre for decades to come. So I figured today we'd check out the blood-soaked mystery that put Colchack on the map, and find out what really went bump in the neon night of 1970s Vegas. The film starts with Colchack in a dingy hotel room, which I guess it is the 1970s, so they were probably all dingy. He's giving a recount of the bizarre events that took place, and the lengths at which those in power went to cover them up. People in power trying to cover up bizarre events? That sounds kind of familiar.
Cheryl Hughes was 23, 5 feet 5 1/2 inches tall, 118 pounds.
It's crazy how much older people looked back in the 1970s, because that is a rough 23. Anyway, Cheryl does the very smart thing of walking alone in a dark alley in 1970s Las Vegas. A short time later, her body is found, and the opening sequence for the film is actually kind of unsettling. The whole thing takes place from the point of view of Cheryl as they perform an autopsy on her, and it gives me the weirdest feeling. In any case, reporter Carl Colchack is given this latest murder as his story, but that's mostly because it's seen as a throwaway and Colchack isn't exactly respected. Well, it's not so much that he's not respected, he's just willing to do whatever it takes to get the story, and it kind of pisses people off.
John, was there anything unusual about the autopsy?
No, all I know is she lost a lot of blood.
Some spy.
With no real help from one of his inside sources at the hospital, Colchack speaks to Cheryl's friend Gail, who he seems to know on a rather personal level, if you catch my drift.
She dated once in a while, but never the same man twice. I don't think she liked men.
And based off what happened, I'm not sure men liked her either. Colchack doesn't get much out of Gail, but that's okay because there's another dead body. Just like Cheryl, this woman also seemed to lose a lot of blood, and she also has strange marks around her neck. Oddly, the only footprints leading to the body appear to be Colchack's and the police. So what? Did the vampire throw this poor woman after killing her? Colchack's editor Tony doesn't buy this story about women having their blood drained by some super strong psychopath.
Quit barking the PD. If something turns up, they'll let us know. Meanwhile, use your head and lay off.
Ah yes, the police are always known for being completely transparent and always telling the truth. In the meantime, there has been yet another murder. Nothing goes with solving murders quite like a refreshing glass of milk. Somehow, this woman was murdered by the back door of her kitchen without waking her roommate who was asleep just mere feet away. Now this must be a different killer because the guy that killed Cheryl was anything but quiet. Carl meets with a friend of his, FBI agent Bernie Jenks, who might be the only person in law enforcement that is actually willing to work with him. But that'll have to wait right now because who's this?
I just thought you'd like to know I heard the Parkway Hospital was knocked over.
Yeah, knocked over for what? Cash, drugs, equipment, what? Blood.
Who would need to steal blood from a hospital? This interesting development will need to wait for now because Colchack has a meeting at the local courthouse.
Do you have any idea what could have made these wounds?
They're not unlike the bite of a medium-sized dog.
Oh great, so there's either a vampire on the loose or a rabid corgi. It actually turns out to be human when the coroner reveals that the victims all had saliva around the bite wounds. That's human saliva. Obviously, in Colchack's mind, this means the killer is a vampire, or at least he thinks he's a vampire. But the mere mention of this only sends everyone into hysterics.
Well, I don't care what kind of a nut killed these women. But I'll tell you this, he's out there, and I bet he's high on pot or the hard stuff.
Ah, yes, it's that reefer madness turning people into vampires again. It seems as though they do have a vague description of what the murderer looks like. Some tall, lanky, pale guy with dark hair, who's definitely not a vampire. The coroner does kind of take Colchack's side, saying there is some credence to his claims, but the DA basically shuts the whole thing down, telling the reporters they are not to say anything about the women dying from the bite wounds or the saliva found around their necks. In typical Jaws fashion, they're more worried about the tourists that might leave the city than the women that are being murdered.
Some screwball who imagines he's a vampire is loose in Las Vegas and people ought to be told.
It's not even like Colchack is suggesting the killer is a full-blown vampire, so I don't see what the big deal is with printing this story. Anyways, Colchack sees his much younger girlfriend, I think, and he's so frustrated with all these idiots surrounding him that he doesn't even notice that she's trying to take his shirt off. No time for making out though, Colchack. There's been another murder.
It's like Bela Lugosi's struck again.
Knock it off. It's her daughter.
Oops.
Colchack isn't the most tactful person when it comes to these sort of things. The killer is getting way more sloppy now though, because the police have a sketch of his face. Hey, what's Captain Kirk doing here? I'm gonna go on a limb and say this guy's the killer. Don't worry though, this woman has a Doberman with her, and as we all know, dogs never die in movies. Oh shit. Well, the woman and her dog are dead, and Colchack's editor seems to be annoyed because he wrote a report about it, but isn't that his job? I'm sorry that all the facts point towards vampires, but that's not Colchack's doing.
We are supposed to print news, not suppress it.
The news suppressing facts to the people? What a silly thing to say, Colchack. Colchack follows up on a lead about a car the supposed vampire may have purchased, but for some reason, the vampire argued with the salesman over the price of the car. Now, if you're an undead creature of the night that is basically immortal, you must have some cash saved up, no? I mean, if you lived hundreds of years and you're so poor that you need to argue over a few $100, I say pack it in. Colchack has a little conversation with his lady friend about quitting her late night job as a change girl because women as of late have not been having a good time late night. Gale then plops down some books about vampires on his lap because what if the killer is an actual vampire? You know, she seems to be taking this idea a little more seriously than he is.
By hammering a wooden stake through his heart.
You know you don't have to read the book, right? Any old Hammer film would work just fine too. With that said, the vampire has basically given up on the idea of being stealthy. Even after being spotted, he still takes his sweet ass time grabbing the blood. Damn, he's so strong he makes the entire hospital shake. Colchack shows up just in time to take in the festivities, and I'm pretty sure these cops just shot one of their buddies. Holy hell, look at the sideburns on this guy. The shit has hit the fan at this point because there's no keeping a lid on what's going on now. At this point, they also know who the vampire is. His name is Janos Skorzny, born 1899, which puts him over 70 years old. But when did he become a vampire? Because he looks like he's in his 60s. Unless that whole immortality thing with vampires is bogus.
Skorzny's father died in 1923. He left somewhere between $75 and $100 million.
So this vampire's father died and left him $75 to $150 million, and he has the audacity to argue with a poor car salesman over $300? Sometime in the 1940s, Janos passed himself off as a hematologist named Paul Belasco, which makes sense, a vampire specializing in blood. In 1948, he then moved to Canada and continued as Paul until recently when he arrived in Las Vegas. So as a Canadian, I'll definitely take the blame on this one. Kolchak's buddy Bernie makes the mistake of claiming Colchack was right about the whole blood drinking thing, and boy does that inflate his ego. Colchack then brings up the fact that Janos was shot, didn't bleed, and managed to outrun cop cars, all at the ripe age of 70. He suggests they start treating Janos as if he were an actual vampire, and of course everyone acts like Colchack has lost his damn mind.
Show every real estate agent in town a picture of this guy's puss.
Excuse me, show them what?
Show every real estate agent in town a picture of this guy's puss.
Kolchack speaks to a friend of his named Mickey who seems to have a connection to the real estate market, which should help him locate where this vampire is living. But why do vampires always buy houses or castles where they're stuck in one spot? Wouldn't it make more sense if they were always on the run?
All units, Janos Skorzny, spotted in 1969, green unpaneled station wagon.
How did Janos stay so low profile for so long to all of a sudden being known everywhere? Maybe he should have just stayed in Canada. Also, why is Janos even driving a car? Kolchack literally said he outran a police car. You'd think driving around would only slow him down, no? Especially since now the police know what car he owns. After taking like, what, 100 rounds? Do you think maybe now people will start listening to Kolchack when he says this guy is a vampire?
Now, are you willing to listen to my insane ideas?
Colchack,
Get out of here.
The DA and the police are in quite the pickle, because so far, everything they've tried has failed. I mean, you can only throw so many bullets at a man until maybe you should probably try another approach. And that other approach appears to be crosses, mallets, and wooden stakes.
But it looks as if we have a real live vampire on our hands.
Well, vampires aren't technically live, I guess, but I get what he's saying. The men talk it over and agree to equip the police with the vampire-slaying gear, but still intend on having Janos stand trial if they catch him. Have these idiots learned nothing? They've already tried catching him, and look how that's gone. Colchack's offer is accepted under the condition that if he's wrong, then Colchack is to be run out of town and never allowed back. But if Colchack's wrong, doesn't that mean they just stabbed a man to death with a wooden stake? Colchack's buddy Mickey gives him a little heart attack and tells him he may have found the vampire's house. You'd think with $150 million he might be able to buy something a little fancier than this. Anyways, Colchack decides to check it out for himself before the police arrive on the scene, because who knows what exclusive horrors await inside. That suit totally clashes with that fake mustache. You know, Janos could have picked up the place if he was expecting company. Ah, a coffin full of dirt. Clearly the signs of a mummy. Why does he need her when he has a refrigerator full of blood? You know, if Janos had just stuck to stealing blood instead of murdering women, he probably would have flown under the radar for much longer. Anyways, Colchack tries freeing the poor woman, but uh-oh, Janos is home. Oh, so much for the big tough vampire. What, you can't handle a little cross? Oh, so that's why Janos had garbage lying everywhere. So Janos literally gets the upper hand because Colchack is a klutz. Kolchak's buddy Bernie comes in to help, but there's not much these guys can do to a vampire. Oh, I guess sunlight works, and crosses, and wooden stakes. Well, this is awkward. Hey guys, I know this looks bad, but I swear, he's a vampire. With the vampire dead, Colchack finishes off his story, and then he proposes to Gail, because once this story hits, baby, they're headed to the Big Apple. Colchack hands in the story, and Tony's acting a little strange. Turns out his buddy Bernie wants to see him at the DA's office for what I assume will be a huge celebration.
Carl Colchack, you're under arrest on the charge of murder.
What? You mean these fine upstanding gentlemen screwed him over? So the sheriff made up some nonsense story about Colchack being allowed to tag along as part of their sting operation, and how he ran in and killed a man he claimed was a vampire as part of some heroic act. His buddy Bernie doesn't even come to his defense, and he saw the whole thing go down. What it all comes down to is they don't want the real story getting out into the world, because you know it'll make them look stupid and it might hurt tourism. So they're essentially blackmailing him with this murder charge and forcing him to leave town. They even told his girlfriend Gail to leave town because, as they put it, she's an undesirable element and they don't want undesirable elements in Las Vegas. Isn't Las Vegas as a whole just one big undesirable element? So Carl loses his story, his girl, and his friend who looks like he's been constipated for weeks. The entire thing gets buried and all the bodies, including Janos' victims, are burned, I guess in case they come back as vampires. The Night Stalker is a really fun made-for-TV movie that can be pretty much watched by the whole family. There's no nudity, no language, and the violence that's shown is pretty tame. What I enjoy about this is that you can really see the groundwork that's being laid for shows like The X-Files and Buffy the Vampire Slayer, though I'd say this is more of a direct influence to The X-Files than Buffy. You have a man, Carl Colchack, who's willing to do just about anything to expose the dark underbelly of Las Vegas. Meanwhile, you have those in power who are willing to do whatever they can to shut him down. It's very much an inspiration for Fox Mulder and his quest for the truth. The massive popularity of the film led to a short-lived TV series, but its legacy endures. It became the blueprint for every Monster of the Week show that followed, and it all started with this unassuming little TV movie in 1972. But what about you? Have you seen The Night Stalker? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. And if you're interested in a follow-up video on its sequel, The Night Strangler, or the short-lived TV series that followed, just let me know. If you're curious about how the film came to be, I've also got a video that dives into its production history, and you can check that out right here. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you're having a great day, and as always, stay spooky!
The Night Stalker.